What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Yala. Ooh, it has been a while. I mean, we've had a past few busy days.
I think a lot of people were asking us why we haven't jumped on the U word, the U word that has everyone talking right now.
The Umbrage train.
That's right.
The Umbrage train. Because we are a podcast that dives into the weekly hottest news and current affairs with a touch of what, Terrence?
Touch of humor.
Yeah. And even though we didn't jump into some hot topics last week with a touch of humor over the podcast, we most definitely did on stage.
I think we're just gonna spend the next few minutes just tooting our own horns. So
yeah, tooting our own horns.
If you're not big fans, you might want to skip ahead. But if you're fans, we want you to listen to this. Please wax lyrical about your own performance.
Because last week was actually the first time that Terrence and I did stand-up comedy, not just in front of a live audience. I mean, we did an open mic the week before, but on May 6th, 7th, and 8th, we had 3 shows and we performed to at least 100 people per night doing stand-up comedy for the first fucking time, man.
Yeah.
And
how was the experience for you?
I mean, it was eye-opening, man. I've always had a lot of respect for stand-up comedians, but now I think I have even more respect because it is not easy, man. It is not easy. And
to clarify, we went there branded as Ministry of Funny, so we did do a 5-minute sketch, kind of a 5-minute skit, and but after that we did solo 5 minutes each as well, lah. So
and the only prep we had.
There was still something for people who wanted to see us as a duo, so that, right?
Yeah. And I mean, it was super cool because it was done at the Drama Center at the National Library building. It is a 700-seater capacity, I believe, and on Thursday and Friday it was limited to 200 people. But then on Saturday, when the restrictions kicked in, it was capped at 100. So that means some people actually had to be refunded. But that also means that we sold out a fucking show, man. And of course, it wasn't just us. We were lucky enough to share the stage with other stand-up comedians like Sam C, Deepak Chandra, Orion Perez, and Gurmit Singh.
So I mean, it's not just stand-up comedians. Gurmit is practically like Singapore legend, right? When it comes to the comedy scene. Maybe not stand-up comedy, but definitely,
just comedy.
Just comedy in general. You would think Gurmit is like up there, lah. So it's quite surreal for me, lah, to that our first ever like paid live gig that we didn't organize ourselves. That we come as personalities is alongside Gurmit Singh as well. It is quite a shock to me.
Because we have, I mean, even for Sam C and Deepak Chandra, who have done stand-up comedy for years, because the reality is, if you're a stand-up comic, generally you do a lot of open mics for 5 minutes, then you get a chance to do a 5-minute opener for maybe a bigger comedian at their own show, and then you work your way up. And we are so thankful that, I mean, we have put in the work in online videos, but stand-up comedy, we are admittedly very new, but to be kind of invited to this sort of event is fucking amazing. And to all our friends and supporters who showed up, and even people who never knew us before but came, fucking thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say whether our performances were up to par or anything like that, but just being in the same room with these fellas, right, who live and breathe comedy every day, and just watching them do their craft or do their thing, whether or not it's one of them does accents, the others. The Gurmit Singh, he is Gurmit Singh, right? So it's all very different, varied forms of comedy. And just watching each of them do their own thing, I was just so thankful, because this the first time in a long time as an adult where I actually felt like I wanted to learn, I really wanted to just soak in everything that any piece of advice anyone could give, lah. I've not had that feeling for quite a while. That's the truth, and so this was really quite something for me.
So what was your overall thoughts for those 3 days? Because we literally did a very similar sketch. We tweaked along the way, but even our own stand-up sets, we tweaked along the way, but essentially we were doing the same thing 3 days in a row to different audiences. And what were some of the epiphanies you had?
No, I mean, I'll be honest, when we first started this whole thing, right? Last week I was half hoping that COVID would cause the whole thing to be called off. You know, it's the kind of thing in your mind when you're preparing for a very big contest or fight or whatever, then or competition, then you just like, you know, maybe Cat 1 or something like that, it will cancel or whatever. Or, you know, you're about to run your IPPT. Even though you've trained very hard for it, everything. That was part of going through my mind. And then closer to the date, then I realized, oh shit, I mean, regardless of whatever restrictions come in, I don't think the event itself will be cancelled. It might be modified in some ways, but not cancelled. Then I was like, okay, then we got to make this work. Yeah, I mean, I
but now you're telling me that basket.
Yeah, now I'm telling you because I mean there were nerves for sure. So yeah. So what I really sincerely mean it when like as you approach your mid-30s and everything, you start getting that general like aversion to learning new stuff which I told you before is something that I admire in you right. That you can just drop everything and then be like a noob in the room and then not feel embarrassed about it, right? So for me, I haven't had that feeling in a while. But this time, like the stand-up thing, I just felt like, you know, I'm a complete noob, but this is so awesome. I need to learn because it's such an opportunity. Yeah. So that's awesome. What went through my mind. Yeah.
Fuck, last week when I was... Because we didn't even rehearse our sketch in person, no? The first time we did our sketch face to face was in front of 120 paying customers. We were rehearsing over WhatsApp. We were rehearsing over that. And I mean, to me, the whole process of performing in front of audience what blew my mind because, I mean, I think when I first started out acting in front of a camera, like let's say for the HBO show or for our own show, I was very nervous. But now, thankfully, I've done it enough where I feel very comfortable. But on stage... you can't just deliver the lines. You can't just say what you prepare because you have to build off the crowd. You have to feed off the crowd. And that was one of the biggest realizations for me over the 3 days. And also that you need to have fun because if you're not having fun, if you're not if you're nervous, right, the crowd is going to feel nervous. It's a very weird thing. Like, I mean, every one of us has probably done a presentation in front of like work, your bosses and all, but to do stand-up comedy and to be just there trying to entertain the crowd is fucking is hard to describe but I think it's almost if the most important thing, if you laugh at your own jokes, people will laugh with you, which is so weird.
It's weird in the sense that even for giving a presentation, a lot of it is about exuding confidence, right? About not missing a beat and everything. But sometimes stand-up comedy it requires you to be very negative. It requires you to almost be like the most annoying person in the room. And there's another kind of confidence it requires, right? The confidence of even if you look stupid, you don't feel it at all, right? So it's switching off certain kinds of filters in your brain that you never knew existed until you actually realize, oh, your job is to make people think that you are the most annoying person in the world right now, the most whiny bitch in the world. And that's okay because that's part of the act. So I would venture to say it's different from giving a presentation because you and I, we've given so many presentations. Like even last week, we were literally teaching a class and everything like that, right? And that is a totally different skill set from this. So that's why I was so impressed when I was talking to some comedians backstage, and then they seem like one kind of person. Then when they go on stage, suddenly it's a whole different persona, and then you realize, oh shit, it's all calculated,
Yeah, it's all calculated, and I think it's a lot. Like, I mean, I think like the first night, was we were all warming up, we were all getting used to it. Then I think for me, the second night, I think it went the best for me, and then I got a little too confident, and then the third night I was nervous. So it was just. And I think you ended strong, right?
I think I was tweaking all along the way, from first to second to third,
Yeah, so I was volatile, fucking just volatile again, Then you had the the grounded, like the grounded stoicness. But I was like, after the second night, I felt like I was on top of the world, man. Like I could fucking conquer the world.
Because I think the difference is that you care a lot more about how people react to you, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's it's just a small nuance that makes a big difference.
Yeah, it does.
Whereas
Because I think
day 3
yeah.
was because of COVID restrictions, it had the fewest people. And to me, that, I mean, it didn't matter because I was still just working on essentially the same set, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's more that I'm still trying to dissect what happened on the third day, but the biggest thing is like I think the one beautiful thing about stand-up comedy is when you talk to comics, when you read up about like the greatest comic artists, everything is like a work in progress. And I think philosophically that's also a very cool thing, because I think everyone has this idea that you come to this performance and like your Broadway show, every day is meant to be the same fucking thing. Of course there are tweaks and all, but with stand-up comedy is like this evolving thing where you can say the same thing on 2 separate days and do fucking well one day and do shit the other.
Yeah.
So,
and I think the other interesting thing that I learned from the other comics is how they read the crowd as well. Like a lot of them had their notebooks open before going on stage, and they were, rearranging the order of their jokes and stuff like that, just based on what they were hearing about the crowd from the previous comedians before them and stuff like that. So there's a lot of analyzing how the crowd is as well. But I think one thing you and I need to shout out is to our respective partners also, because I think they've bore the brunt of hearing our half-baked jokes for the past week or so.
I think my girlfriend can do my set already.
Exactly, and she even came down every day to support you and give you feedback every day, and even give me feedback as well. And even when my wife went as well, she also managed to give me and Harish both feedback as well. So all that little bit of feedback really helps you to mold what your final act is, lah.
Yeah, so I guess the $1 million question is: Are you gonna try stand up again, Terrence?
No, it's interesting, but I mean, definitely, if all this COVID shit gets away and there's opportunities, I know we jumped the queue quite a bit in this process, and I'm totally cognizant of that. But I also hope to have more chances to just try it out, lah.
Yeah. I definitely want to try. So to all of y'all listening, there's definitely going to be a future show. So who knows when that's going to happen.
Yeah,
in the meantime,
the thing. It was quite surreal. Like the last day, everyone's just like, well, what's up next? We're not sure, because COVID.
What's up next?
And then I think news came out of like Victoria School being half shut down and stuff like that. So we're like, okay lah, we'll just wait and see, lah.
Yeah, but in the meantime, there's a lot of stuff happening in the world.
Yes.
In Singapore, in media, in Singapore media. And I mean, I guess there was so many opportunities for us to talk about this over the past few days, but we spoke about it on stage.
Yeah.
But now, there are new developments. So what is the big thing we're going to be talking about, man?
Is Singapore Press Holdings, the number one print, the only print...
Number one.
Number one and the only print journalistic... publisher, journalist... the only print publisher in Singapore, right? Is restructuring from being a publicly listed entity into a CLG, which is a corporation limited by guarantee, right? Is it? Company limited by guarantee. Which essentially means it becomes a non-profit that can accept public and private funds.
Yeah. So since then, there was that announcement that came last week. Then there was that, of course, now well-known Umbrage incident with the CEO of SPH. And then after that, there was news that, he apologized in a very passive-aggressive kind of like...
Yeah, actually
not sorry apology.
Before we move on further, do you want to just quickly say what you think about the whole CEO Umbrage and apology thing? Because I think a lot of people were expecting us to talk about it in our previous podcast, but we ended up talking about something else.
Yeah, I mean, we did make fun of it on stage, so at least that itch was scratched. But I personally, when I saw the video, at first, when he said, I take umbrage, I was like, okay, it's not that bad. But then as he went on, and you could see his lip quiver out of anger and just kind of get so fucking angsty at this one question, which I think is a legitimate question. I thought it was just a jackass move, and he was an asshole about it.
Yeah, I just thought that I think a lot of people came to his defense, like Bertha Hansen, saying that, it was very unbecoming of the CNA reporter from a rival, but to me, it's like, I don't think she was being particularly impolite or anything. And she's really, to me, she's in fact, she's stating actually something that probably every Singaporean has on their mind, regardless of whether you work for SCNA or SPH or whatever, right? We all know that the quality of journalism in Straits Times, and this is a question that I would like to answer as well, And he chose not to. He chose to make it about CNA versus SPH, or MediaCorp versus SPH, and the big thing to me was just my chairman's a gentleman, I'm not. Like, to me, it's like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, he wants to get into a fist fight with her or something like that.
No, he's keeping it real. He's being savage, He's saying it like it is.
Yeah, I mean, these Lee Kuan Yew tactics, they don't work anymore in this day and age.
And I mean, on one hand, you can look at him as trying to defend his employees, because he did say that, just by asking that question, you are kind of, it's an insult to all the journalists and editors out there, which I can respect from a boss, but there are ways to do it. And the thing is, for you to just shit on her and just say, how dare you, right? How dare you ask a question? I take umbrage. It just reeked of like someone who is overly defensive over maybe like something that really is an issue. And it doesn't help that he was someone who, prior to becoming the CEO of SPH, he was the group president and chief executive of Neptune Orient Lines, which was a shipping company that ultimately went like bankrupt and got bought over by a French company that turned them around in a year. And he was a army general. So it's that very similar kind of like, okay, retire from army, get put into Temasek, and then this CEO role, then another CEO role.
Yeah.
So it was just like, and Sunny Liu had a brilliant
comic, right?
Comic fucking Sunny Liu.
But that's similar. Awesome. That's what it is, Like, I mean, all my experiences talking to generals officially, like in the SAF, are all like this, where they basically have their heads up their arses, and they just keep insisting that whatever they say is correct, and they're not interested in any feedback from anyone because everyone's lower ranked than them,
Yeah, and I didn't know 10,000 people signed a petition, man, to call for his dismissal.
Yeah, I mean,
hell, man.
One thing that's the truth is that maybe part of the reason that he was brought in also is to like similar to Neptune Orient Lines, maybe part of the idea was that they wanted in a few years to already start to break down the assets of the group, and do something drastic with it, right? So usually there are guys who are, I know in corporate world there are guys who are more specially equipped for this kind of job, basically. In the sense that it's not about turning the business around or anything like that already. It's more about like how to derive value for each piece of the business, in a sale. So maybe he's the hatchet guy for this kind of job. Bring him in, and he doesn't care about his name being soiled. As long as he just gets paid his $1 million salary, and he just do it.
So you're saying he's brought in to basically fuck companies up and drag them down to a point where they are either sold or dissolved, or turned into a non-profit.
Because non-profit. It is a whole industry in itself. I mean, I used to work in an investment bank where literally in times of when the economy is bad, there's a whole business called restructuring, which is about bankers coming together to look at pieces of the business and which part can be sold for how much and how much value they can get, renegotiating interest rates and stuff like that. And it was a big business for the banks, So I'm not saying that. That's why I feel like I can't. I mean, being outside, looking from outside in, I can't say for 100% certain that he's the worst CEO in the world for SPH, because maybe this is essentially what SPH wants, for him to start tearing down the walls and start selling out piece by piece.
Yeah, so it's weird. I mean, he's still CEO, right? And I mean, okay, so since then he apologized. Then there was an announcement that there was a kind of a debate between Pritam Singh and Iswaran, the MP in the PAP minister in Parliament, about how is this new CLG going to be funded? Is the government going to be providing funding to the CLG? And if that's the case, how will it remain impartial? And then it was announced that like retired Minister Khaw Boon Wan is now going to be the chairman of the CLG.
Yeah.
So it just feels okay. So maybe one thing that helped me kind of understand was a bit about, or wrap my head around the whole thing, was the reason why and the benefits of restructuring SPH and the implications and the consequences. Like, are you familiar with why?
A little bit, but I think it's worth running through again.
Yeah, so I mean, essentially, SPH owns a shit ton of businesses, no? Like they own property, they own, and the media business is just one arm of SPH. Like the SPH Media, which oversees the current media businesses: SPH Print Center, SPH News Center, Target Media, SMX Asia One, and DC Frontiers. I don't even fucking know what's SMX, but it's all SPH Media. So after this restructuring, what's going to happen is SPH Media will be transferred to CLG, which will be the sole umbrella company that oversees SPH Media, and then everything else will be under SPH.
Correct.
And by becoming a company limited by guarantee, it means that the CLG can now get funding not just from commercial or advertisers, but also from grants and trust funds and the government, right?
Correct.
So the interesting thing is why this could have been done. I mean, first of all, there is, I think SPH will be, let's see, they will be selling their media-related business for 110 million because they're going to be raising $80 million of cash. And this is where I think the funding from the government and all might come in. 30 million of SPH shares and the SPH REIT, and because they have their properties, and SPH's stake in 4 of its digital media investors. And then they will be sold for $1 to the new company limited by guarantee, which sounds ridiculous, but it's actually a thing that happens in the legal world.
Yep. Correct.
Yeah. So some things that were interesting that I chanced upon was, let's say, the thing about, there's actually a Newspaper and Printing Presses Act called the NPPA. Are you familiar with what the implication is?
No. Yes, but go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially they say that no shareholder can hold more than 5% of a newspaper without approval from the government. So when I read this, I was like, okay, so what? But that just means that, let's say SPH, there's some fucking private equity firm or something that wants to come in and buy 30% of SPH. Because SPH owns the newspapers in Singapore, if BlackRock, say for example, owns 30% of SPH, BlackRock essentially owns 30% of our newspaper, which means they need approval from government. So by SPH spinning out their media arm, right, BlackRock can now own 30% of SPH because none of the other businesses have anything to do with the newspaper.
Got it.
Yeah. So that means it can help SPH become more commercially successful. For example, it could help SPH maybe sell their individual arms for profit. So I had no idea of that, but I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. So there's probably a whole bunch of other circumstances and consequences that arise from this restructuring, but it's not just because, I think the common thing for me, I was like, oh, they're turning non-profit because they can't make a profit. Okay. Yeah. So it's like, is that how you solve the problem? But I think there are many other implications. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I think as a public conglomerate and everything, they probably need to remove the shackles that being the printing press imposes on them as a company. So plus the fact that the numbers look very bad every year at least in the past 3-4 years, especially the first time they I think in 2020 was the first time they turned the loss right from the media side of the business. But so it's, I guess and actually if you watch S. Iswaran's speech in Parliament, he lays out the groundwork quite comprehensively for why this makes sense, and is looking at a larger globally what's happening in newspapers, especially the printed press, is that advertising revenues are all dropping. A lot of newspapers have gone bankrupt. The ones that have stayed afloat, a lot of them have also gone into alternative structures for funding, including like the Philadelphia Inquirer and like Washington Post was also bought up by Jeff Bezos, and South China Morning Post also bought up by different entities, right? So the idea is that we can't. I think we can't stay in the same position and do the same thing and expect any different results for SPH for the Straits Times. So for the survival of Straits Times, probably they have to adapt to some new structure.
Yeah.
So he lays it out actually quite. I thought it was like quite a logical explanation of the current situations for newspapers, whether or not SPH. And he even lays out, there are examples like New York Times and Wall Street Journal that have managed to turn a profit from digital subscriptions and things like that. But those are newspapers that have a much bigger readership than just within their own country, lah. And it's the truth, lah. Like, for whatever reasons, at the same time, Singapore being a small country, I don't think that many people want to read the Straits Times as opposed to, a bigger newspaper from a bigger country, lah.
Yeah.
So actually, there's a lot of logical underpinnings for what they're doing now, lah. Well, what do you think overall of what it means for Straits Times?
I think what it means for Straits Times, I think before I get there, like you brought up the thing about Iswaran and Pritam Singh, right? So I think it's an interesting watch because Pritam started with like 5 questions about the editorial integrity or freedom of SPH, given it will be under the CLG, and whether a new committee with Singaporeans can be formed to kind of determine what they want. And I thought those were good questions to start with, but I thought the way whereas the conversations went on, I think the points Pritam brought up to rebut Iswaran, like, pulling up the 1997 clipping of the new paper and just using those 2 examples of the Lian. So basically, he pulled up the front cover of a 1997 edition of the new paper where it was ahead of the elections, and the headline was kind of prescribing and being quite biased towards the opposition, kind of telling people, okay, this is what you would get if you vote PAP, which is all good stuff, and this is what you get if you vote opposition. So clearly not objective.
Yep.
And then he brought up the example of how earlier this year it was the Lian He Zapao, the Chinese newspaper, that published an article that asked some hard questions about the cabinet reshuffle, while the Straits Times one was just like kind of brushing it aside and being quite superficial. So, but when he brought that up, I thought the way Iswaran replied was like a good politician, and I thought that was where the point of the whole conversation. I personally didn't feel like there was anything that came out of it, because I think Iswaran managed to rebut Pritam's point validly, because for me the biggest question is anything gonna change? I don't know, because the crux of, so the only thing I thought what Iswaran said was weird was he was quoting these surveys by YouGov and IPS that said 7 in 10 Singaporeans have complete trust in the broadcast and print media in Singapore, and this is what Singaporeans want, and any questioning is doing a disservice to the journalists and editors. Then I'm like, hey, fuck lah, like am I the one who's disconnected from the general sentiment that people are happy with broadcast and print media? Because I think they are fucking shit lah.
Yeah, I mean we the thing is that it's been consistent lah, right? In general,
what do you mean? That they're shit?
Yeah. It's been pretty consistent that the quality hasn't been
there.
No,
but that's the thing, right? Maybe they're like, like how when everyone is like, opposition, the PAP sucks and all, then come out election, okay lah, it's still overwhelmingly PAP. Maybe Straits Times is also like that. Everyone's like, Straits Times is shit. But if people had to vote, the Straits Times would be voted the best print media in Singapore lah.
Yeah, I mean, because there's only one option, right?
Yeah lah, there's only one option lah.
I think, and I mean, there are a lot of layers that Pritam was poking at lah, right? Some of them are the very basic things like how much is the government actually going to fund SPH with? Asking for a ballpark figure, then Iswaran is saying, of course we can't give you a ballpark figure because we're working through numbers and we want to be exact about it, which is a silly argument to me lah. But I mean, anyone who knows about like negotiating budgets, there's the excuse that both sides will always give lah, right?
Yeah. But it was a good politician answer lah. It was a good politician answer.
It's like when we whenever we are asked to do something, then we ask for a budget. They will say, you quote me first lah. Then you say, no, but I need to know what ballpark. Then after that, then it just goes back and forth. That was what it sounded like.
Or when people ask you, hey Terence, so how much you make as a podcaster / YouTuber / filmmaker? Then you'll be like, the project numbers change lah. I cannot prematurely say how much I earned this year versus last year.
Yeah. It's a very political answer. But the other one was I think like the other topic is Sylvia Lim of Workers' Party also was asking about. Is like
she asked
why,
some good questions.
Yeah, she asked why is Khaw Boon Wan being roped in as the chairman? Khaw Boon Wan himself admits that he knows nothing about digital media. He never had a media portfolio. So, and then he used to be chairman of PAP. So if you want to talk about editorial integrity or that, why not put someone who is not so PAP affiliated as the chairman, so that or overseeing the whole thing, so that there won't be people questioning the integrity of the editorial integrity of the newspaper. I think that was a very legit question. And if people say that, oh, where got such people, then I would say there's a lot of people out there. Ho Kwon Ping used to be a journalist. He's very highly regarded, in whatever circles in politics and all. So I think there's more than enough people qualified to oversee this entity and getting someone who, again, like the Dr. Lee Boon Yang, who has zero media experience, again, to try to help this CLG through its transition and all that, is, to me, doesn't make sense lah. It's a bit like, again, the whole thing of someone who is just a project manager lor, $1 million project manager. That's it lah.
No, and it's a project manager that is not going to rock the boat lah, right? Is someone who is really part of the establishment, and that I think is I think over the past few days, I was like, okay, this thing is so complicated. But the moment I saw today that Khaw Boon Wan is going to be a chairman, I was like, fuck this shit, just fuck this shit. It's the same fucking bullshit. And I think Sudhir, our guest our most recent guest, wrote a very good article that I think he said has been read around 100,000 times already in the past few days. And he had this one line which I thought was great. He said, Ho Ching and other elites love to lecture ordinary Singaporeans about improving ourselves to face global talent competition. So when you think about global talent, right, when you have a company that is in the media space that is facing a very tough time around the world, why are we not bringing someone, or trying to find even someone within Singapore who has the chops in media to fucking do something to elevate or the whole SPH lah. Khaw Boon Wan, I don't even, fuck hell, is he ever, he said he has no media experience or something, right?
He said no digital media. But can we just clarify for the sake of the layperson, what do you mean by having chops in media? Can YouTuber do or not? That's what I think that's a good question. So what do you mean chops in media?
No, chops would be maybe someone who with more experience in an equally sized newspaper. I mean, because Singapore is SPH is the biggest print media in Singapore, but ultimately our population is only 5 million, right? You have so many countries where you have newspapers that publish daily for populations that are huge, right? And there are so many people with that sort of experience, so many people from companies or media companies around the world that have managed to turn themselves around, either getting a big investor that helped them retain some sort of editorial freedom. I mean, you can argue Washington Post, is it still free from influence from Jeff Bezos? I don't know, but The Guardian, for example, they adopt the not-for-profit model, but I think their values are very, very aligned with the trust that funds them about editorial freedom. So it just feels like, okay, you hear that rhetoric a lot, right? That, Singaporeans are no longer competing with just Singaporeans or people in Singapore. You're competing with the world. Your job is up for grabs by anyone in the world. So, okay, fine. Then for a job like this, shouldn't we also think about bringing in someone who has a lot more experience in this area?
I mean, probably there is some element of, given that it's the national newspaper and politics is involved, it might need to have, need to be Singaporean. I think as Iswaran basically said, this is Singapore news by Singaporeans for Singaporeans essentially, he said in his speech. So I think getting a foreigner would be a very tough sell. But at the same time, I think the very least you would need is someone who has had some kind of experience in media or journalism, whether it's the broadcast side or the literally being on a journalist or something, right? Who understands how a newsroom works and the economics of a newsroom and things like that. Of course, because all these things can be can be learned in theory, but just on the ground and understanding it is a whole different thing, lah. And I think even journalists themselves are struggling with the switch to digital, right? And if you told me you're someone who's expert in like digital, like someone who understands like who funded Mothership, for example, or something like that, like Giorgio, right? Then to me, like, okay, lah, I would totally buy that because he would understand what that transition means, lah. But to get someone whose last post was essentially Minister of Transport, and it was basically taking the bullets for a very, very bad run under Desmond Quek. It kind of reminds me of what the situation is now, lah, right?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, even if they got a younger leader from the establishment, I will be more encouraged. Like, it almost feels like you can imagine when Khaw Boon Wan's first day, they have to explain to him, okay, there's this thing called TikTok. Okay, TikTok is this platform that has, you can do 30 second to 1 minute videos, and then there's this thing called NFTs. I mean, no disrespect to him, maybe he knows,
maybe
but
he
it
has a
just
TikTok
feels
already.
like maybe he has a TikTok. Like, oh my god. And that's where I guess it just feels like, okay, so even from my own personal experience working at SIA last time, right? The CEO of SIA, when I joined in 2009 was one person, and then 2010 I think it changed to the next person. But there was a deputy CEO who was a ex-general from the army. And aviation is also an industry similar to media where it is its own universe, right? Even though I didn't fit in with the culture of SIA, what I respected about them, right, was even though the general was there, he was second in command. And even in the meetings, when it came to the hardcore questions about aviation and all, right, he was not the guy. And I think he knew that. And he was totally fine with that. The CEO was someone who had been in aviation for 30 years, knows inside out. And that's what I respected about the SIA, because they knew that if you want to be fucking a world-class company, you need people who know the industry. Sure, you can put a general in, but he can be in charge of ops, for example, And I think that worked out well, and I respect the general for knowing that, okay, when it comes to aviation, you can offer input, but you can't. It's tough to be the decision maker, because there are so many people out there who are equally brilliant with experience, and it just feels like with this SPH thing and CLG, like, walao eh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a.
Oh, fuck,
I mean, at least Khaw Boon Wan memes will come back again,
I mean, at least he has a lookalike in media, so maybe I don't know. Maybe that's something there. What's his lookalike? What's the name of his lookalike?
Henry Tia, the actor.
Henry Tia.
Hui Ke, yeah. But it's I guess for anyone who grew up before the digital era, it's a huge announcement, the fact that our newspaper essentially is throwing in a towel in terms of trying to make money the traditional way, right? So it is trying to. It's a wake-up call that this print media thing might not last for much longer.
Yeah.
But we'll wait and see if there's more interesting developments. We'll find out. I think the next interesting thing is really how much the government is going to fund the Straits Times, right?
Yeah, because admittedly, this whole thing has not been approved by the SPH shareholders, right?
Yeah, correct. Yep.
Yeah, it has not been approved yet. So a lot of this is still okay. Once approved, then it kicks in. But I don't know, who knows? Like every day so far, there's been some new thing, new development in this. Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow?
Yeah, I can't wait for another press conference with Ng Yak Chun.
I guess the good thing is I learned a new word. I never heard of the word umbrage before. Never ever fucking heard the word.
Yeah, but I'm quite glad that all Singaporeans got almost, I would say, probably 80% were all quite pissed off or riled up by this paper general's behavior, right?
You sure 80% or not?
You
got to take a YouGov survey or not?
Just from my own just asking around to people and just being around different types of people the last few days, right? It does feel like I think most people are quite turned off by his behavior. Not saying that he did anything morally or ethically wrong, but it's just a huge turn off.
Yeah, even Shanmugam came out and said, man.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I'm quite glad the way that we all recognize boorish, very Trumpian kind of behavior, and we're not fans of it, lah.
Yeah, exactly.
Which actually brings us to our next topic as well, on Singaporeans collectively and decisively acting against of bad behavior from a seeming, what I assume is a foreigner, lah. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was this incident that we're talking about? Unless you got something else to add on about the
No.
SPH thing. Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I'm good with that. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. What was it that happened?
So what happened was there was this Caucasian man who boarded the train at Jukun, I believe, on the evening of 7th May. And the train was heading towards Redhill, and he was very adamant about not wearing a mask. So someone took a video of him and the people around him who tried to convince him to wear a mask. But it was interesting because it wasn't a heated discussion. He was just very calmly explaining why he will never wear a mask, and that he's very religious, he loves human beings, and hates seeing uncles with masks on. And I think what riled the other passengers was that he was trying to convince another uncle to take off his mask. Or something like that, right?
And I think he refused to put on a mask even when offered a free one.
Oh yeah. And then he sat down next to a woman who got up, and it was just weird because we've seen videos of like the other people freaking out in public and like lashing out at safety distancing ambassadors and all that. But this guy was relatively calm, right?
Yeah, and the people talking to him were also quite calm, lah, other than taking his video, lah, right?
Yeah. But so what was your original thoughts when you saw the video?
No, I mean, it reminded me a lot of my experience with that one cyclist at East Coast Park, who ran up to me and wanted to pick a fight with me and my family because we had our dogs on the bench and everything, lah.
But that one he was violent, lah, right?
No, he wasn't
This guy was
violent.
very calm.
He wasn't violent, but he was like almost like raising his voice and like just being in my face and all that, lah. So
correct.
my response to him back then was to just like, okay, I mean, I don't know why you need to be so aggressive or that, but let's sit down and have a talk about it, lah. And then he sat down. He said that, in this COVID times, like dogs are very unhygienic and stuff like that, and they might pass the disease. Obviously, now we know that dogs are not the problem, lah. Obviously, when it comes to COVID, so
it's more humans, lah, right?
Yeah, it's more human. So him sitting down with me is worse than the dogs doing anything, lah, right? But yeah, so it's just that kind of situation where then I think when I mentioned how I reacted to it, a lot of people were like, wow, I'm not tooting my own horn, but I was also quite surprised that a lot of people were like, oh wow, the way you responded to that is like, is very it's so difficult, nowadays people lose their temper or that. But when I saw how Singaporeans were reacting to this fella, in the MRT, I was like, oh, that's quite a pleasant surprise that people weren't running up to punch him or anything like that, or calling him like racist names or anything. I mean, they took his video all lah, but they were trying to convince him and they were offering him a free mask also, to just get him to comply to laws and all lah. And subsequently he got arrested because he still refused to wear a mask. But imagine if he did wear the mask and everything, he probably then nothing would have happened to him lah, right? He would have been saved from this embarrassment lah, essentially.
Yeah.
So actually, I thought, Singaporeans not bad, at least we know how to try to talk some sense into people lah.
No, but the thing is, what I found interesting is, okay, this one, it's true. It was calm, it was composed, and at the end he got arrested for doing something that's illegal. But I don't know whether it was just me or like this weekend felt like there were a lot of incidents of people shouting at other people in public.
Correct.
There was one case of that group at Lau Pa Sat shouting at safety distancing ambassador.
Correct.
There was this Singaporean Indian guy who was shouting at a Indian expat. Indian family.
Right.
Then it felt like
there's one more. I think Lee Hsien Loong just posted something on his Facebook an hour ago about a lady who got kicked because she was brisk walking without her mask on, and then some young dude went to kick her and call her racist slurs lah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why. So that's why I mean, like, that's why when you said, "Oh, it's good to talk because it was calm and composed," and I could see you thinking, maybe there's hope for Singapore. I love my country. Then I'm like, dude, wake the fuck up, man. If you look at this, it's almost like this was one step forward, okay, but we just took like 3-4 steps back because it was insane, man. Like the kind of shit going on.
But you got to remember that is a quite a stressful period of change for a lot of people, right? As much as it's just announcements, and some people a lot of us are also not affected that much because we've mostly been working from home already, or our officers have been taking the necessary precautions, so we might not feel the impact. But I think you have a first-hand view of like what's happening to like gym and yoga instructors and all, right?
Because my girlfriend's a yoga instructor.
Yeah. So what's the situation like?
She found out last week that her studio has to stop all live classes. That means in studio, and do everything online, either online or outdoors. Which I mean, thankfully her studio already had outdoor permits. For some classes they were starting, so they already had permits. But there was a long list of studios who were clamoring for permits to do outdoor classes, and then to do live streaming. I mean, I think people go to classes because they enjoy doing something together with other people, and live stream classes, it's tough for the instructor, it's tougher for the students. So immediately the number of classes for her per week got reduced, and then I think there was a lot of pushback, and then over the weekend she heard that studios might be opening, so again they have to adapt. And then now I think it's confirmed that Wednesday her studio will be opening. So it's just like, it's so much flux, and it's very unsettling
and then I think I've heard of like a lot of personal fitness instructors overnight they basically have lost the whole month's income. So and then a lot of people who rely on going to a gym or pay for a gym to go and exercise, they suddenly have to go Decathlon and buy exercise gear. Not that it's a huge deal, but generally there are some there are people or segments of society that are very, very distressed by this new development in the last few days. So the fact that it happened over Friday to Saturday, and the fact that definitely some people also are not 100% sure of what the new rules are, and the fact that the numbers of COVID cases being imported and all that have and looking at India right now, the situation in India also, people feel a bit scared. So I can understand why there is some angst or some general hysteria in the population . Not that I'm excusing racist behavior or anything like that, but I think just going back to your question about how come so many people were so enraged these few days, there could be a reason, they could have lost a whole month's income, things like that. Right.
And I think the one at Lau Pa Sat and some other restaurants, I think that whole thing about moving from a group of 8 people you can eat together to 5. I'm sure there were a lot of bookings, especially for Mother's Day, that maybe you had 2 groups or something, then suddenly you cannot. And I think the F&B establishments were a lot stricter. So it's just a tense time. But I mean, I'm still surprised by your reaction because the gentleman in the video also seemed to be wearing tight spandex, and yet you did not get triggered.
But he was not on a bicycle. Understand. He was not on a bicycle. It's different.
That's true.
He could be just running in ultra marathon or something, right?
That's true. Yeah, or maybe you're changing. Maybe you're changing, Terrence.
I did look up. I actually did look at what he was wearing to see if he was one of those . But he's taking the MRT. He's taking MRT like any other Singaporean person does. He's not
he was very
speeding
calm.
ahead. Yeah, he's not cutting queue or anything, or being a fucking asshole all these spandex cyclists are. Yeah.
No, okay. So, I was thinking today, because I saw another video of the CCTV of this woman who had a dog, and the dog just took a poop outside and it carried on walking. Then I was thinking, for every time you say there's all spandex wearing cyclists are assholes, I'm going to just say, all dog owners are assholes, and then see how you feel. Because some dog owners are assholes, not all of them.
I mean, I would actually venture to say that the majority of dog owners are quite bad .
Oh, is it?
So I'm actually more in agreement with you than you think. The unfortunate thing. I enjoy dogs, but the owners of dogs, unfortunately, again another special breed . Excuse the pun. Yeah.
I think what made me think about it was I was yesterday. I just saw along East Coast Road I mean, the pathways in front of the shop directly where everybody walks. Some guy was walking with his dog who was very active, like, and I'm like, there's a pathway like right outside, which is not the main pathway. Can't you walk there? Because I can imagine people, like, not everybody loves dogs, like. Some people are anxious, and I've seen that kind of behavior, and they're always like, dude, I mean,
They never
on,
talk
like,
to him. Never talk to him nicely. And
he was on the other side of the road. He was on the other side of the road.
I see.
I was waiting for the bus.
Oh, so you're
yeah.
thinking you're thinking on behalf of all the imaginary people walking on the other side of the road, lah.
Yes. I know we've had this discussion before, but if I was there, I also would be like, dude, okay lah. Like, I just want to. I mean, sometimes I also get a little. If the dog is very anxious, I also like, okay, get a bit of you getting used to lah.
But
So then I was like, I have to bring this up. I have to bring this up to Terrence.
I know.
Yeah.
But the one thing was that this guy in this video, he wasn't. He didn't seem like he was crazy or anything, like, right? In fact, he seemed quite articulate, and he seemed to be talking about a range of issues and stuff like that, like that. Sometimes you hear conspiracy theories talk about, but he's not crazy, lah. And I just wanted to ask, do you personally know anyone who is like anti-mask wearing or anti-vaccine, and someone you know lah, like not like you heard of?
No. I know by association lah, but not a close friend or anything. But I've been in the presence of that person multiple times where they kind of explain why they don't understand all these regulations and how COVID is fake and is a man-made thing lah.
So what is the psyche? What's the psyche behind it? Can you explain a little bit? What do you think is going on? Why are they like that?
I think because this person is also older, so spends a lot of time on WhatsApp, and I think has a general distaste for the establishment. Yeah, and I think that is the root cause of it lah. So whenever there's advice or guidelines coming from the establishment, there's a natural defensiveness lah. And then you look for explanations online, and then you get stuff from your friends who are similarly of age and not the most discerning of what is real, what is fake news and all that. And I think slowly over time you really build, you buy into it lah. Yeah, and it's almost like you can't, like, it's very hard to kind of even explain your perspective to them, because it's like, just like how you can't understand them, I don't think they can understand you lah.
Correct. Yeah, I think the same thing. I think the one or two people I know, it really stems from you, and it's something that you can see years ago lah, before these people became adults or anything like that. And
really? Yeah?
As in when they were like younger and all, they always had a distaste for institutions or establishment views, or anything that anyone says is the general public likes or doesn't like, they will try to go against it, saying that they are smarter than that and all that, and then it just sort of like snowballs, and like you say lah, they pick and choose what they read and watch, and they just, I mean, it's impossible to argue, because it comes from a place of like you provided evidence, they'll say that the evidence was created for people like you lah, like, who are so easily
exactly
susceptible to it and all lah. So it's actually it's kind of like watching a slow motion train wreck. Like bit by bit, you see their psyche slowly giving into crazier and crazier conspiracy theories about everything lah. When it comes to at first it's about eating meat, then after that it's about drinking coffee, the next thing is about masks, then it's about vaccines and all these kind of things lah. And these are normal functioning people with families and kids and daughters, sons and daughters. So it also makes you like kind of scared, like, if their kid really gets COVID or some shit like that, like what would they do lah, right?
Yeah, but I mean, who knows? Maybe they are having a podcast just talking about you. Saying, it's really a train wreck in slow motion. He invited Xia Shui on his podcast.
Yeah.
And then it's just they feel bad for you and me, just being of liberal, adopting all these liberal views and all that.
Not liberal, we're fucking brainwashed. We're brainwashed.
Yeah, brainwashed by the leftist the liberal left, the liberal left.
Every day eating McDonald's and poisoning your bodies and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's why. That's why.
maybe that guy. That's why the guy in the video. I mean, I'm like, he is a bit different from the sovereign lady, like the sovereign lady.
Yeah,
the one was a bit like she was talking about a whole other political system, but this guy, like, it seems like he has a wide range of views on different topics. I just wondering what is his stand.
He's obviously foreign, right? So that means he came to Singapore, and I mean, I would imagine he has a maybe a white collar job or something, So I'm just curious, like, okay, that's interesting. That's interesting, and he's arrested, so he's going to be charged, but.
Yeah, I guess.
But so far there hasn't been much news. He hasn't been doxed yet.
No, he hasn't been. But
right.
Yeah, because it was so calm. You see, he wasn't being such a huge asshole about it, other than refusing to obey the law, right? Which is to
that's interesting. He hasn't been doxed yet.
Yeah,
because I know, like,
people not as angry. They're not as angry about him.
Yeah, that sovereign lady, like, immediately, or like the other lady at the shopping center back last year or something, immediately gonna dox. Yeah. That's interesting.
I think, because I guess because the guy was a bit calmer or something. But I mean, I can totally get the Caucasian man who is angry that he has to wear a mask because he wants to be drinking beer on a Tuesday afternoon with his friends at Clarke Quay.
Correct.
That Caucasian man, but this Caucasian man, I'm like, what's the story behind him?
He in fact said, he feels he hates seeing uncles wearing masks. I think he said something like that. And you're like, wow, shit, he's using Singaporean language. Oh my god.
Yeah.
But that is also kind of weird, right? Like, if he's calmly being
anti-establishment, right?
Anti-establishment, it's a lot more palatable than being like hysterical.
Yeah, it is. People don't dox you as much.
Yeah, they don't dox you.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now the MRT also a hotbed for all this crazy shit.
What was the last
one? Week there was that the lady taking a video of
the Hwa Chong lady.
Yeah, the Hwa Chong lady.
Yeah, correct. Yeah,
interesting, Singapore.
Correct.
Interesting,
But
cool.
Cool.
All right, cool. I guess that's the hottest news that was on our minds the past few days. Which brings us now to the next segment, which is our one shook comment of the week.
Yes.
Or past few days. Yeah. Do you have a?
I don't have a particular comment, but I think I was very happy that I saw two Yalabat listeners I bumped into two Yalabat listeners who came to our comedy show on Friday. I think Friday night. And they have messaged us on Instagram before. I think it's Dacia and Joshua. So I managed to grab a selfie of them in the car park of all places.
No, but you must tell the story. Like, they shouted your name, right? And then for a moment you were a little surprised.
Yeah. Of course, I was just going to the car park, and then suddenly they were, hey, Terrence. Then I was like, oh, like, who is it? Because this was like quite a while after the show ended already, right? Because we usually hang out for a while backstage and all. Then they're like, then they identified themselves as two huge listeners of the podcast, and they had messaged us before, and I do remember them messaging us, and because she tells me this very specific story about how she introduced her boyfriend to Yalba, now he's a bigger fan than she is of the podcast. So shout out to them for taking the chance to also check out our comedy show, and hope they enjoyed it.
Yeah, cool. My one show comment is from I Am Botak. And he or she says, folks, would you be posting vids of your stand-ups or even an audio version? Would love to watch, even if you charge for it. So I mean, we are like the audience was not allowed to take videos, and rightly so. I guess for comedy shows, I think generally the modus operandi is for audience members not to take videos. But I think there might be a video out there we might be able to get our hands on that was taken by the organizers. We can't guarantee it, but it might be there. And I guess it was interesting when the commenter suggested charging for it or something, because I mean right now there's a lot of things that we are also considering about other ways to upload more content. Oh yeah, shout out to Terrence for editing our first Yalabat video, right? It's our first Yalabat podcast video, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, we started a YouTube channel, guys.
Yes.
Given that there were a lot of comments asking for videos, and we're going to be uploading videos. And the first video podcast we uploaded was the one with Sudhir,
Yeah.
which we uploaded last week.
Yeah.
So actually, we haven't announced it at all. This podcast, we have a YouTube channel now.
Here we are, lah. Yeah. Check us out on YouTube. Just look up Yalabat. Yeah.
Yalabat.
There's one video up.
Correct. It's
give us a bit of time to catch up with the subsequent episodes as well, because I think we're just getting the flow of things. And last week we had the live show and all. So this week we should be uploading at least like 3 episodes, I would think, of our podcast.
Yeah. It's its own YouTube channel, not just Ministry of Funny. It's a new YouTube channel, so please subscribe. Okay, fuck. When was the last time we said that, man? Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, man.
Yeah, the cool thing is we've got I think we've got at least like 20 subscribers already. Just in this, just in this couple of days, just putting up there. So there is an audience for it for our Yalabat podcast.
This is like back in 2011 when we first uploaded our video of Ministry Funny, and we whenever we hit like a milestone of 100 or 500 or 1,000 subscribers, we would just take screenshots and send to each other.
Yeah. No, I'm nice. Super excited for this YouTube channel because it's like it really, if it allows you to watch and understand, the people who are on the podcast better, whether it's guests or even ourselves. You can pick and choose what you want to watch as well. You don't have to watch the full thing. You can jump ahead, put timestamps, comments, engage with the rest of the community as well. Timestamp your most interesting bits and all that, right?
I think there was someone who commented last time saying that due to restrictions of sites at his or her workplace, they can't stream Spotify on their work laptop. But then now you can listen to our podcast on YouTube, yo.
Yeah.
Yo.
And see the amazing setup we have in our office. Right.
Yeah, we're keeping it real. Okay, we're keeping it real. We're focusing on the content, not some fancy schmancy studio.
Yeah.
But as long as the sound is dope, we're happy, man.
Yeah. Cool.
So, all right.
What is your one shock thing of the week?
My one shock thing is, as I was kind of prepping for the stand-up comedy show last week, I was just trying to watch other comics I admire and understand the breakdown of telling a joke on stage. And I mean, I know a lot of people think that stand-up comedians, if you're funny, you can be a stand-up comedian. Hell fucking no. It's like, if you have good ideas, you can write a script. Hell fucking no. There's certain structures lah. And there was this video by Nerd Writer, which is a great YouTube channel. He does video essays. And he did a video called back in 2017, pre-sexual harassment scandal. He did a video about Louis C.K. When Louis C.K. was at his prime. And I mean, love him or hate him, Louis C.K. in terms of his skills in telling a joke is fucking insane. And the Nerd Writer does a great job kind of breaking down just this one joke of Louis C.K. And I think if you watch it, you kind of will have to appreciate stand-up comics even more because it sounds like it's purely like train of thought, brain dump stuff, but you can see the structure in his joke and it's fucking good. It's fucking great.
Yeah, I think definitely over the course of the next few months, I will give a lot more shout-outs to the local stand-up comedy scene
and we can get them on our podcast also
Yeah. That's I think my mind was also opened up about the possibilities of talking to these guys on our podcast and all my one shot thing actually is something that I haven't actually listened to in full, but I've seen the highlights already. Is Dave Chappelle on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Joe Rogan.
So I mean, I've the highlights are there are some interesting bits. They talk about Kevin Hart, always flossing, showing off on Instagram. I mean, they talk about Elon Musk on hosting SNL and why and whether it was a big deal and things like that. So it's I think anyone who loves the Joe Rogan show and all that, I think Dave Chappelle probably is a very interesting guest. I wanna check it out also, and let me know if you all do the same in the next few days.
Cool. All right.
All right.
So now we should be back to regular programming. And thank you so much for listening as always. Oh, and if this podcast has brought you joy in some way or any other episode, it'd be great if you could share it with at least one person.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, please do. Okay, all right. That's the end of our podcast. It's ending now.